it's not always easy to adjust to those sort of things.
Yeah, well, man, you're brilliant. You've already gotten the interview going, and we didn't even start. So you're made for TV and commentating.
I've slipped into interview mode. It's probably not what you want, is it? You'd rather have
it's brilliant, and it's brilliant. In fact, I'll probably edit that in at some point.
Well, if that soundbite is any indication, I think you're going to enjoy the podcast today. Hello, everyone. This is Rev Brad, and you're listening to the Soccer Chaplains United podcast from the Touchline. This week is part one of a recorded interview with Steve Guppy. Steve's the assistant coach for Nashville SC, and we developed a special friendship when he coached here in Colorado and in the years that have followed since. Thanks for joining us today, and I just want to take a minute and ask you, if you're enjoying the podcast, would you take a moment, give us a rating, maybe write a review for us? That would be much appreciated. And if you have feedback for us, we'd love to hear that too. Maybe there's a topic or a guest, maybe like a 15-minute pod or something a little bit longer. We'd love to hear from you, and you can shoot us an email at podcast@SoccrChapUtd.org. That's podcast@SoccrChapLainsUnited.org. Well, without further ado, Steve and I are going to get running on the wings right after this.
He's found the space, and he's found the back of the net.
Just a little off foot, thinking he's going to go far post. Not strong enough with his right hand.
Whips that one in. Far post, almost made him ends, and they have. He has the hat-trick. The second in his career. The third of the night. The hat-trick hero.
Talked about you're not going to be able to sustain that kind of pressure.
To the corner. Goes towards the near post. And you're at the angle, and what a goal! What a goal!
Well, hello, everyone. Rev Brad here from the Touchline with my special friend and guest, Steve Guppy. Steve, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Steve, you're assistant coach for Nashville SC Football Club. You guys are in your inaugural season here in Major League Soccer here in the United States. And, Steve, I just want to take a minute and go through your amazing pedigree. I say amazing because, I'm just a Rev. So, and I know sometimes I might get these things wrong, but I just want to touch on some highlights of your playing career and then kind of dive in. No pun intended there with the dive. But you can correct me on anything that if I don't get it right or if I miss a key highlight, you speak up. All right.
So if I can remember, it was, go on then.
It was so long ago, right?
It was.
So you started in 1989, which for some kids, they weren't even born then. But you started in 89 with Wickham Wanderers, and you played, 19, 20 years, which is a long, long career. I think I read somewhere over 550 games. You scored 50 goals or so in that career. Is that, am I accurate? Am I on track with that?
I don't know, the honest truth, but it sounds about right. I should have scored more. There you go. But I was more into setting them up. I was just not, me, Brad, I'm not selfish.
Yeah. Well, again, Steve, we really love the truth here on the Touchline, and so appreciate your humility and humbleness there. So you only exaggerate about fish, right?
Well, catching fish, let's make sure the viewers understand exactly what you're saying there. But yes, catching fish, like all good fishermen or all fishermen, you always exaggerate about the size of your fish. There you go.
Exactly. Well, you said catching fish, and I was going to point out that we might want to clarify that that's actually catching and size, but we'll get into that later. So.
yeah, good point.
Steve, you played mostly for Wanderers, but you played a ton of games for Leicester City and Port Vale. You spent 4 seasons with Scottish football giants Celtic, and toward the end of your career, you came over here and played in the U.S. for DC United and a well-known Rochester Rhinos team. So that's kind of like some of the touch point highlights that I knew about some of those things. In fact, I remember what were the years you played for DC? Do you recall what seasons that was?
2006. I was there. 2006, pretty sure. Really, really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
I think I had been serving the Rapids as a volunteer chaplain for about 4 seasons, and I recall still kind of in that time of the league, around that time was really, man, if a club got an Englishman coming over, or someone that had played in the Premier League, or had played high level football, it was still a really powerful thing. Like teams just kind of were, and maybe even today still kind of looking for that. I know the league's kind of gone younger in their scouting, but yeah, I just remember DC United having this Englishman playing on the wings for them, and reading your name a few times in the lineups, and thinking, wow, can we get an Englishman here in Colorado? But anyway, along the way, you've collected some key memories, moments, some special honors and awards, and we'll get into some of those things a bit. But do you ever go onto Wikipedia and look at your awards, your career, your achievement? Do you have to correct that or amend that, or you just let other people just kind of recall and recount all those things?
Well, it's funny you should mention Wikipedia because a few years ago, apparently there is another Steve Guppy who lives in Cornwall, down on the south coast of England, and he's a manager of a Sunday morning team down there, lower league thing. And I don't know if it's him or one of his friends, they just think it's absolutely hilarious if they update my Wikipedia from time to time and put in the fact that I'm now a manager down in Cornwall. So not that it bothers me, but I remember my wife, for whatever reason, someone mentioned it, and we had a look. And sure enough, there it was, did this, did that, whatever. And then towards the end of my career, I'll find myself down in Cornwall, which obviously isn't true. So we had a little period where my wife was changing it, and then they would change it back a week later. So we was going back and forth for ages. I've given up now. So I have no idea if I'm still fighting down in the lower leagues of Cornwall or not. So, listen, it was a fantastic period of my life, and I don't need Wikipedia to remind me of some of the moments.
Yeah. Well, maybe proof that you can manage her in your sleep. But wow, Cornwall's added to the list. We'll need some what I think Wikipedia calls it disambiguation or whatever it's called. But Steve, if you had to go through that playing career and maybe give us 3 highlights, I'll let you pick. But maybe best goal or favorite win game or your favorite memory, maybe a favorite personal or team achievement. If you had to distill it down to 3 highlights, where would you go?
Well, I think, as you were explaining my career, 1989, I signed for Wycombe Wanderers, and Wycombe Wanderers were in the Vauxhall Conference at the time. They're in the Championship now, which is amazing. But they were the Vauxhall Conference, but people might not realise that means you're non-league, so you're part-time. So you're not a professional footballer, you're semi-professional. I'm not sure what would be the equivalent in this country. But anyway, so at that point I was 19 years old. I'm not actually... The story of becoming a professional footballer is completely, for me, was a lot different to most others. I left school and didn't go into an apprenticeship at a football club like, most people would have done. No one wanted me, the honest truth. So I went on a building site for a few years and became a qualified bricklayer and things like that. But I always harboured this dream. So, and through practice and this, that and the other, I managed to find myself at Wycombe Wanderers, which, to be honest, is incredible. From 16 to 18, I did not kick a football.
Not at all. Not
promise
even
you,
in the garden.
I don't remember kicking it for 2 years. I went fishing a lot. I caught a lot of fish, but I left school and I think I was the smallest kid in my year when I left school. And I just was such a late developer, and it affected my confidence. And although I had the skill to beat players, I couldn't get away from them because I was so slow, because I was so small, and everyone shot up. And it happens a lot, and I think that most academy directors will recognise there's a player in their team who's going through the same sort of thing, and that was me. So 2 years, didn't kick a ball. Then I shot up into the impressive frame you see before you today. and with it came speed, confidence, blah, 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 blah. So, I started playing football again with my mates at 18, just pub football, lower league, just for fun, and quickly found myself within a year at Wycombe Wanderers in the conference. So I just had to explain that. So the reason Wycombe would be my first major memory is the night we beat a team called Runcorn. So we beat them 4-5-1. I actually scored a goal when I ran the length of the pitch, probably my best ever goal, length of the pitch, and then chipped the goalie. I'll just throw that in. But that night we won the league. And we won the league, which meant that we went into League Two, which meant we became professional footballers. And that was a dream that obviously I'd had from the age of 6, 7, obviously thought had gone at 16, 17, 18 when I'm kicking myself, just kicking my heels on a building site, doing something that I hated doing. So for that to come along and become a professional footballer, that night when we all signed professional forms was just an amazing feeling. And it was just a real, thankfully for me, that was just the start of the journey. So there's your first one. And I have to say, a couple of weeks later, we got to a cup finals when we played at Wembley. And Wembley, is obviously the mecca in English football, the stadium, the old Wembley. And it was one of those few moments when you dream as a kid to walking out or walking up through the tunnel onto the pitch at Wembley. It's like a thing that, cup finals, they always film it. It's a big thing in England. And I got to do it a few weeks later after turning pro there. Wow. And it was one of the few moments, Rev, when a few moments in life where it's every bit as good as you hoped it would be. And it was just a magical moment to walk up and there's that tunnel, and then the crowd see you, and you don't the noise that comes when the crowd see you. You can see the flags, waving and what have you, and it's like a wall of sound that hits you as you come up. And that was phenomenal, that was fantastic. So,
wow.
So anyway, I'm probably going on a bit much here. So
no, I mean it's brilliant. Yeah.
So that was my first one. So I've got another 2 to get in yet. But listen, I'm always talking about other players, so you can listen to me for once. So second one, it was signing for Leicester City. You signing for a team who were in the Premiership. I was playing at Port Vale in the Championship, which was great, a great education, very good standard. But the Premiership, the EPL, as you guys call it, was obviously the dream, and everyone was striving to get there. Funny enough, I was at Port Vale, and I got a phone call, and I knew I was doing well, and I knew there was Leicester City had made a few bids, and they'd been knocked back, and it was a nervy time. And the manager at Leicester City, Martin O'Neill, rang me up, which he probably shouldn't have done, and said, "Look, I've made a final bid for you. I think it was about £1 million. So, because this is as far as I'm going. I'm not going to bid any more for you. If Port Vale say no, I'm going to go and sign a lad up in Glasgow somewhere, some Scottish team." So he told me that. So he goes, "I know by first thing tomorrow morning." So needless to say, that night I didn't sleep very well at all, and I didn't have many fingernails left come the morning. But 7 o'clock. It's true, it's incredible. So that night I was just chewing on it because I thought, if they turn this bid down, that's it. My Premiership dream's over. Luckily for me, 7 o'clock in the morning, Port Vale manager rang me up, said, "Lou, we've accepted the bid, bloody blah." So, that was great. Playing in the Premiership was just incredible. And funny enough, I scored my first goal. I nearly went with that. First goal against Tottenham. I think when you score a goal, you play in the Premiership, you want to do well, blah, blah, blah. But when you score your first goal in the Premiership, it feels like you kind of arrived a little bit, in your own little mind. Funny enough, I scored my first and my last goals in the Premiership against Tottenham. So I think, I can't think of a better club to do it against, really, I suppose.
Yeah, so, right.
That was number 2. And the third one, I'm getting there. The third one was playing for your country, playing for England. I have to say that this going back to what a massive influence my dad was throughout this whole my whole career, ranging from back in the back garden, 5, 6 years old. We used to just get me to drop my shoulder and burst past him, rather than just shooting. He was all about taking players on because he played with a great player when he was playing called Terry Payne. He was a winger. And in fairness, me as a coach, that's something that I've taken on in my coaching. So when I played for England, what we do, we never have the national anthem before any games, the Premiership or anything. I know over here that's every game. You only get the national anthem when you play for your country. That's the only time you get it, or cup final. So I remember when I played for England, we played against Belgium. We were lined up there playing the national anthem. And I looked up in the crowd and I saw my dad, which was just, a lovely moment, and you think you're going to get emotional. You're not. We end up looking at each other and we burst out laughing. From a distance away, obviously he's in the crowd. I stood up on the pitch and we just laughed. It was almost like, can we believe it's come to this?
Wow.
After all those years in the back garden and tantrums and goodness knows what else, what kids are like. But all the driving, he drove me all around the country, followed me everywhere, and to get to play for England, I cherish those moments. Not for playing for England, but for how he must have felt. As I lost him last year, so it's really nice to look back on those memories. And it's not always about football. It was just the fact that you knew that it would have. As a parent now, something like that must have been fantastic for him, and so I'm really pleased that happened.
What a proud moment for him, and just to go back for a moment, back to those special father-son moments when you get to share that special thing together, that football, and wow, what a neat moment, and awesome that you guys could connect and catch eyes and share in that special time together. That's a wonderful story, Steve. Appreciate that.
No, thank
I appreciate
you. It was no problem. I mean, and it was funny in that we didn't, we just burst out laughing, which is some nice comedy to it as well. But exactly, I think sometimes we get roped up in got to win, got to this, got to do that. But when you look back on your career, a lot of the moments you remember fondly. Not necessarily the wins or this. It's those moments when you connect with a loved one, I guess, and and for me, obviously, such a poignant moment, having considering what's happened in the last year or so with losing him. So fantastic memories. Thanks for asking me to and now I get a chance to relive it in my mind again.
Yeah, so you put out a name there, Terry Payne, kind of as someone that your father had played against and probably was trying to teach you and coach you, and you're known as a winger in football, and I can just imagine that some of the folks listening to the podcast today, not sure what a winger is. I've got some American folks who are still kind of figuring out what soccer and football are, but just give us a simple breakdown. Like what is a winger? What does a winger do? Was that kind of your primary position throughout your entire career, or was that something you grew into? Tell us more about that.
Yeah, I mean, a winger is, I guess, it is what it sounds like. You're out wide. You're on the extremities of the pitch. I was a left winger because I was left-footed, so I was out wide. I used to call it the graveyard shift because you're nearest to the fans, which is great when you're playing well. But when you're not playing well, you can hear everything. So, what would normally happen if I wasn't playing very well, you'd find me drifting more and more infield. But but out wide is good because I never used to head or tackle anyone. Hence, I managed to survive playing for 20 years. But I think predominantly you're out there. It's a demanding role physically. You've got to get up and down the whole pitch during the game. But one of your main thoughts or ideas really is your supply line out there. You get the ball, you try and beat players, try and make things happen, get crosses in the box for the centre forwards to try and score. So, you're a creator. That's the way I like to look at it. And
you talked about just the uniqueness of being out on the left side. You're close to the fans. You're getting hurled abuse when you're not doing well. They're singing your praises when you're doing great. and just looking to become that dynamic threat as you get up and down the field. Any other key things that you think this is part of the role that you just maybe you're telling a young lad or a young gal hey, when you take on the left-sided position, you've got to know these things. These are critical to the position.
Well, I think the hardest thing in the game is to score a goal. There is no doubt. The second hardest thing after that is to create, and in amongst that is to beat a player, and that's why you don't see many people do it. It's very hard to do, and it fascinates me. It always did do, and as a player, that's something that I was really fortunate. Reference my dad again, that he got me to just little bit, a body shape, little drop of the shoulder. People know what that means, a shimmy. You see that in all sorts of sports, American football as well, with a wide receiver, I suppose, very similar roles to the winger. Yeah. He's there, shimmy to get away from his marker, and it's no different in soccer. So, that's something that fascinated me, and I worked out a lot to try and get that shimmy to get a yard and then cross the ball. And that's something I really try and bring to the players I coach now. And, I'm really into position-specific coaching and trying to get players to become better, more comfortable, and actually look for, actively search out 1v1 moments on the pitch. Because I know, anyone watches any soccer game, games are decided regularly on 1v1 moments. So if you become better at them, then chances are, you might get that extra goal, that extra chance that you wouldn't have got if you hadn't worked at it. Right.
So what would you say is a good standard in terms of if you're scouting, if you're looking for someone to come in to Nashville or one of the other clubs, one of the places you're managing, and you're looking at the work rate, the speed, the distance and ground a wing player has to cover, are there some metrics for you that you're like, hey, this person needs to, have a certain level of quickness, a certain ability? What are some of those things you look for in a wing player?
Yeah, I think athleticism is a key part of the role, because like I said, you've got to get up and down. So, you've got to be a good athlete. But, I think when I want to scout players, when I'm looking at players, I'm looking to see what their weapons are. What can they do? What can they do that others can't? What do they do better than most? Whether they've got a really great left foot. Could that be something that would really help the team? Are they just simply great athletes and get up and down? So, they bring that to the team. They're constant non-stop movement, or are they great at beating players? Are they skillful? But I think, to really play the role correctly, you need a combination of all those things. And they're obviously really difficult to get hold of, because the chances are they're playing in the top leagues around the world, if you can get that. But, a young player, any advice to any young winger out there is to really concentrate on your 1v1s. Try and get better at beating players, because then you're starting to create a weapon, something that you can bring to the table that's different. But, I think a common mistake some young players make is that if they're really skillful, they forget to do the spade work behind them of getting back in and tracking back and all the rest of it. Whereas really, in this day and age, you need to bring the full package. You need to be a team player, but at the same time, if you've got that little something extra, you can bring that little bit of magic in the final third, unlock a door with a little shimmy and a cross or a shot. Then you'll go places.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And so help me, Steve, because sometimes I'm watching a footballer, especially left-footed players, and being a right foot dominant player person myself, sometimes I just go, just take a touch with your right foot, but help me understand that. Is it because they're so focused, and left-footed players, I think a lot of people, if you understand the game of football, that a left-footed player is special and dangerous. But I know some of the others maybe sitting out listening to the podcast are watching a match and going, why doesn't this person just use their other foot? Help us understand that a little bit better. Is that just because they're so honed in to that left foot that they just don't want to risk bobbling up or passing the ball away at the right or having a bad touch or what is that? Why won't they just take that just little extra touch with the right foot?
Well, I think you got to remember that the pressure the players are under. You know, if you think about it, I know the way life is at the minute. There's no fans, but if you're out wide and the ball gets switched to you and there's maybe 20, 30,000 watching you, you know, and you're predominantly left-footed, you know, you're going to be leaning towards wanting to be on your favourite foot. You know, of course, you get 2-foot players, and I certainly wasn't one of them. My right foot wasn't the best, which is, you know, on me. I should have been better at it. So I think players work at it. It's funny you should say that, because I think it's more in this day and age, you get more players cutting in on their weaker foot because it's easier. They cut inside rather than go down the line. You know, whereas really and truly, we try and coach the players at Nashville to go where the space is. If the space is down the line, then try and work an angle, try and work something to get down there. You know, if you come inside. But the modern day winger nowadays, a lot of times, if you're left-footed, they play on the right wing, and right-footed, they play on the left wing, because you can cut in and then be on your favoured foot. But to me, of course, I understand that it can be effective, but I still love to see a winger go down the line, get to the byline, and just hang across up to the far post. You know, if you think of the times at Colorado when, you know, Connor Casey was there, or Omar, you know, I think it's a harder cross to defend if you're a defender, because you can't see what's behind you. Whereas if you cut in, sometimes you can see the forward in front of you as well as the ball. I just think they're the crosses that really, you know, do the most damage.
Nice. Well, so as a player, you were known for what's been described as a trademark cross in from the left wing. Tell us more about, like, I mean, did they give you a name? Did they name your trademark cross? Like, do you have a little nickname out there for the Steve Shimmy, or what is some of the more signature parts of your game? Unless you can't disclose that right now, unless that's still under patent pending kind of law.
Well, exactly. I mean, I did have a few nicknames, but I don't think I can share them with you on this podcast. But
it is a family podcast.
Poorer performance, yeah. That's one of my poorer performances that I managed to get a few nicknames, mainly by the crowd, which were completely unfair, I might add. But no, I mean, not really, Brad. I mean, one of the nice things about living in America is that hardly anyone saw me play, so I can tell everyone I was really good, and no one knows. So, you know, that's one of the nice things about living over here.
There is YouTube, and we can go searching. In fact, I think I have seen a highlight reel somewhere of you whipping in crosses. But you know, sometimes, and again, I'm a Rev, right? I'm not a coach. I don't have great eyes for the game. I've seen a lot, but it seems to me that sometimes a winger will have maybe a favorite spot on the pitch where they like to serve the ball in, or, you know, like you said, do they get all the way to the end line and serve it in? Do they serve it in, 18-yard extended line? You know, like, was there anything like that for you where you're like, or you just waited until you felt, the defender's backed off now, or goalkeeper's off his line? Like, what parts for you kind of made you instinctively know now's the time to serve that ball in? What was that for you?
Well, I think I was, I've got quite an obsessive nature, and I used to practice. I was telling one of the players today, funny enough, I used to practice crossing every day. I used to try and make sure I crossed 100 crosses every day, if I could. And so it just became a habit, and it was more, I wasn't really like lightning quick, so it was more about a little bit of a shimmy, get a yard and cross. And that was my game. You know, it was really putting the defender off balance, create the yard, and then get the ball in there and make sure I missed the first defender. With too many people, hit the first defender. and try and get it in there to give the forwards the best chance to attack it. So that was the plan. Didn't always come off, of course, but I did try, and once again, to any young viewers out there, I did try and make it a habit. The thing about trying to beat a player, Brad, is I think most people, if you give them a ball and you said do a little shimmy, they can do it. If they have a nice run up at a defender, they could do it. But the trick is to be able to do it without realising you're doing it. So you get the ball, defenders on top, and you just do it without even thinking about it. When you can do or manoeuvre your body in such a way without realising you're doing it, then you're a player. And that takes thousands and thousands of reps. And that was something I always strive to do. Is these 100 crosses, I normally did that with some sort of shimmy to begin with, just because I knew that my dad drilled into me from an early age that you have to do it without realising you're doing it, because there's one less thing to worry about. Then you can just concentrate on the cross. So I think that would sum me up, I guess, is that I just tried to get that yard and get the cross in as early as I could.
So manager Kevin Keegan, managing the England national team, has been quoted as saying that you're a little bit like a left-sided David Beckham. To my knowledge, everybody in the U.S. knows the film Bend It Like Beckham. Maybe there's a film out there we don't know about, Shimmy Like Steve. But tell us what Keegan's saying there, like this little bit of left side, and tell us more about this Beckham reference.
Well, I think. David Beckham was a fantastic player. He obviously reached the very, very heights. The few years I was playing the same time as David when he was at Manchester United, our crossing styles are similar of what I've just explained about getting a yard and crossing it. And they have these stats where they, pass completion, cross completion, assists, and things like that. So I think the Carlin Opta stats, they called them. So for a few years, I think it was me and or David and I who were fighting it out for the most assists and things like that. Who got the most crosses in? So that was nice. That was a nice little thing. But obviously he actually then developed his game, moved inside more, and added a lot of goals and passing, and went to another level. But just for a couple of years there, we were having a little bit of a competition on the crossing front.
So had you and David ever squared off in the same match where here's a test between us that you can recall?
Well, I don't think. I'd say. Yeah, we certainly played against. The thing is, I used to play at Leicester City as a wing back, which is a bit of a hybrid of a fullback and a winger, all in one role. Whereas Manchester United, when we used to play against Man United, they were more of a 4-4-2. So David Beckham was a right winger. I'd be marking him, but then he'd had the fullback Gary Neville more for the knot. So it was slightly different, and obviously Manchester United were very good. But yeah, played against David, plenty of times. So I got to see firsthand how good he was.
So I'm thinking with David now owning Miami and you being in Nashville, can we set up something and have you guys go at it again and just do some pinpoint crosses? This could be a thing, right? I think brilliant stroke right here. Yeah, I'm just a Rev though, so forgive me. Maybe that's.
Well, I think David Beckham probably owns about 1 to 2 million every minute, and I'm not sure he's going to find the time for me to have some sort of cross off here. I get where you're coming from, but I think he's got a far bigger fish to fry right now. No pun intended.
Yeah, I get you, but hey, who knows? Maybe a Rev could put a phone call in. We'll see if we can line it up. So,
well, I'm going to have to press pause on the conversation right there, and just let you know, next week it gets even better. We've got a great little skills game that Steve and I are going to play, and you can hear the rest of the interview next week, next Wednesday, when Steve Guppy and I come to you from the touchline.